Hello, everyone. Happy Wednesday, and we're so excited to have you for today's webinar conversation. Welcome to From Capital to Continuity, Supporting Entrepreneurs Through Uncertainty. We'll give people a few more seconds to come into the room, but while we do that, I'm going to get us set up so that we can get into today's conversation as soon as possible. So my name is Olivia Harp, and I'm the program manager for network building here at Prosperity Now, where I manage the majority of our virtual learning opportunities. I always get excited to meet with our network members every single Wednesday. And I'm always excited in a different way for all of the conversations that are coming down the pipeline. I think you're definitely in for a great conversation today. We definitely have a lineup of heavy hitters and a lot of great questions to really kind of target those practical solutions for the work that we do. So a few housekeeping tips. So this webinar is recorded and it will be available via YouTube in the coming weeks. We're now on Zoom. For those of you who have been with us for a while, we used to be on GoToWebinar. And so if you have any technical assistance issues, you can visit this link here, or you can email us directly at zoomwebinar@prosperitynow.org. While you are muted to ensure sound quality, we want to hear from you as much as possible throughout today's webinar. So please use that Q&A box to share not only questions for the panelists, but reactions, even stories, anecdotes, share examples, strategies, best practices. We're all here learning together. We're all here having this conversation together. And so we want to ensure that you are continuously engaging with us throughout today's webinar. And so we always want you to get the most out of today's webinars. We hope that you all are comfy and settled in to take in this great information. We want you to join from a quiet place and grab a coffee or a snack to settle in. Again, engage us in that Q&A box. So engage us in your questions and comments as you listen along. Always reflect on ways to apply what you learned today to your work. We work really hard to make sure that our conversations and touch points with you all are intentional and that they also spotlight strategies and best practices that you can implement immediately. So reflect on ways as we go through today's conversation to apply this to your work. And as you all know, Prosperity Now's mission is to inspire bold action and provide organization with the tools, research, and resources needed to help people build prosperity so that everyone can thrive. And so I'm going to jump straight into our intros for today because we want to have this conversation go on for as long as possible. So our first panelist for today is Ian Cohen. He is a seasoned founder and advisor with experience spanning nonprofit leadership, ed tech, and consumer tech. He currently builds programs and sales academies for early stage entrepreneurs while advising initiatives like Google's Tech Equity Collective and NYC's Boost Founder Fellowship. Next, we have Karen Gonzalez. She is a licensed master social worker with a strong background in program leadership across Texas-based nonprofits, and she is deeply committed to disrupting barriers for communities and recently completed the Spurs Community Learning Institute. Congratulations to you, Karen, and multiple regional leadership programs. Next is Titi Ikile. She is the Chief Program Officer at Working Solutions, CDFI, where she leads trauma-informed lending and business support initiatives that have tripled the organization's capital deployment. Really excited to hear a little bit more about that. And with a background in both banking and entrepreneurship, she also serves on national boards advising economic opportunity for founders who are underrepresented. And last but certainly not least, we have Ray Penny. I will be taking a backseat this week. Ray will be our moderator for today. So Ray Penny is the Chief of Business Advisory Services at ACE, where he leads statewide efforts to deliver tailored support to underserved entrepreneurs in Georgia. With more than 28 years of experience in financial services and nonprofit strategy, he also serves in leadership roles for AOE and the Better Business Bureau. So you all are certainly in great hands for today's conversation. Thank you again to our speakers for joining, and I will leave things to Ray to carry things away.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Olivia. Thank you for everybody that's taking time out of their schedule to participate in this very valuable, what I think is a very valuable session on today. Thank you for the panelists, Ian, TT, and Karen as well. And without further ado, we're going to kind of jump into this thing because we are in some very interesting times in terms of really looking out and supporting our entrepreneurs here across the country. And so I'll throw the first question out to the entire group, and you guys can take a shot at this. And the question goes as follows. And really, what does continuity look like for the entrepreneurs that each of you work with? Do you want me to pick? Karen. I'm
I was coming off mute because I had a
Yeah.
feeling. No, thank you. Yes, so I think for us, we work with primarily Black and Brown female entrepreneurs here in the Texas area. Our programming is in Austin, Dallas, Houston, and El Paso. And right now, I think just given the political climate and the things that our communities are facing, continuity right now looks like community for us. It looks like coming together. We are committed to connecting with our community in various ways, but we have established a once a month gathering where we really are bringing them together so that they can not only see each other, but connect with each other and share experiences. And I think the best way that we've been able to provide support in that continuity for them to keep going with their business has been that. Networking and one-on-one support. We also, in every market, we have what we call the community director, and that is the person who is their point of contact. So they're doing a lot of one-on-ones, house visits, group gatherings to really make sure that our entrepreneurs are feeling supported.
Excellent. Thank you, Karen. And I'm just going to go across the board here. TT, I'm going to ask you the same question.
Yeah, I think that the elephant in the room about it's clear on the challenges that most of the businesses are facing, and that is compounded. And so I think uh, for some of the businesses in the work that we do, because we're both a lender and we also support with the technical assistance, I think has different dynamics. It's around how can they stay afloat and keep the business running, and then some hard decisions of should I continue to take on debt or should I scale back on the business. And I think helping the businesses think through those set of questions and come to like what makes sense for them as a business and as an individual and for the season of life that they're in. And just like Karen, we also creating space internally for listening to hear what their needs are, listening to see themes, and also finding those themes where we can connect them to other peers in the space, peers that I might be walking through similar situations, and then for them to be able to kind of find that right pivot that would help them continue to navigate the ever-changing, dynamics that we're all facing right now.
Thank you, TT. I think that peer learning is huge, and those support networks that both you and Karen speak to as it pertains to community is very necessary in these very uncertain times. Ian, would love to hear your feedback as well.
Yeah, thank you. I definitely echo what TT and Karen were saying. Community is critically important for entrepreneurs in any, cultural moment and economic moment for sure. I guess to dive one layer deeper into that, I would say that this is a really big moment, an important moment for ESOs, in that, and you probably already started to see it amongst your, sorry, hold on a second. Sorry, dogs. I can't control them, but I will do my best to talk over them. What I was saying was this is a very important moment for ESOs because I think a lot of times this is where the ones who are able to provide real value through tactics and action and information are separated from the ones that just focus on trying to keep their folks engaged in order to keep them around for later, if that makes sense. I've worked with a lot of different organizations. I had one that we had a monthly conversation going for a certain group of entrepreneurs, and then they just kind of cut it off and didn't give the entrepreneurs any sort of warning, even though we had just figured out what they wanted. They wanted to be informed about how policy was made, like what policies at the state and federal level are actually impacting their businesses and how, because most people don't have that wherewithal necessarily. But instead, we kind of had the rug pulled out from under us. And so, you know, I think that when you get into the program and you gather up your entrepreneurs right now, focusing on giving them information about how the different cultural moments are affecting them, and also real tactics that they can try and experiment with. Because entrepreneurs, we want momentum, right? We want to have new ways of thinking so we keep growing and keep surviving and eventually prosper. And so the more you can do that, even with little tactics and strategies, and I love the peer sharing and peer problem solving. That really goes a long way right now.
So thank you so much, Ian. I'm going to direct here in the next question to you, and that's really how are you adapting or your organization adapting to your technical assistance and lending models in response to instability or crisis? And that's for Karen, I'm sorry. But,
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. So as I was mentioning earlier, you know, we work primarily with Black and Brown female entrepreneurs here in the Austin, Dallas, El Paso, Houston area. And our focus, aside from being a CDFI, we're also a nonprofit. So a lot of our lending also comes with, you know, that support and strength-based approach to supporting our clients when they're taking on debt. So one of the things that we've been really intentional about during this time is really emphasizing the importance of savings. And one of the things that we have prioritized in any of the programs that we've developed this past year is embedding small, tiny habits that allow our entrepreneurs to have the knowledge and skill base to really understand the importance of creating a savings for themselves so that in situations such as right now, an example, maybe sales are a little bit lower or they're not having the same opportunities to be out in the community sharing their products and selling their products. So how are they making up for those losses? And we're showing them strategies, we're connecting them to resources, and we are creating hands-on experiences where they can obtain those small, tiny habits that can produce long-lasting results for themselves.
Excellent. So I'm going to throw this next question to TT. I'd like to hear out in California there, TT, what's one strategy that's helped you kind of build trust and flexibility into your approach? TT, if you're talking, you're muted.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. Thank you. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So I think first is what is our current approach and how is that helping? So I want to kind of just first name that is because we are a lender first, and all the post loan support and that we offer to our clients that have a lending relationship with us. And so that being said, we frame our work in a way where we're intentional about seeing them grow and also seeing them, be able to stay sustainable through the life of the loan, and also for their own business and whatever pivots that they need to have. And many of the businesses that we serve are at the point where they're very early stage startups. And so providing those foundation is key to them. And one thing that we've always said, this is something that came from if you all know Barbara Ekblad, she's one great leader in the CDFI space, and she said something to that if your success is, it could be kind of coined in a term of saying, are you able to see your businesses in 10 years, and did they invite you back in 10 years to their 10-year anniversary? And then I'll go further and say, they might not be running the same business in 10 years. They might be pivoting to other businesses, or to other forms of who they are. And that is okay. And for us, the key is that with the support that we're offering to them, is really intentional about listening to their needs and then connecting it to what we see as their own, also as the need that we've also been able to capture inside of the resource, of the information that they've given to us. And the way we do that is at the front end. Anytime we get a new client, we do an assessment, and that assessment is done on two-way stream. We do an assessment in early to kind of capture the 3 areas that we want to support them in, which is the money, marketing, and management. And we also have them assess themselves on that area. And then those 2 assessments kind of gets kind of combined together to see, okay, what do you want? What is your goal? Where are some of your strengths? And then also, what are the things that we've seen as an area of deficiency and opportunity for growth? And those 2 gets blended. And as we work together, now we have a buy-in. The key is to get that buy-in, and that buy-in, then it's locked in together, that we're agreed on a roadmap that they can follow. And so if things kind of get down the line a couple months that they're having challenges, we go back to that initial roadmap. This is what we said, and we're here for you. Has anything changed? And so that constant listening and adjusting to see if anything has changed based on what we started with helps us to continue to kind of build that trust, and then celebrate their wins, celebrate the things that they're seeing, and helping them their growth in their business acumen so that they can then kind of just start trusting themselves even more.
Excellent, TT. Thank you for that. I'm going to throw this next question out to the group. I'll start it with you, Ian, in terms of how do you go about balancing the short-term support with long-term business planning?
Yeah, that's a great question. Although I guess I don't expect you to ask terrible questions, right? And I just want to co-sign on what TT was saying. I love the idea of co-establishing a roadmap with the entrepreneurs. It's so rare unless you do have a lending relationship where it's you're a little bit more tied in, but we'll get to that. Balancing short-term and long-term, one of the things I really emphasize a lot in my coaching and in the programs that I've led is getting at the psyche component first with the entrepreneurs. And I want to make sure everybody understands what I mean when I say that, because I think while the growth and of the mental health conversation and space has been amazing and super critical, certainly helpful for me. I've experienced burnout, depression, those things from being a founder before. I think that right now we are missing out on the opposite side of that coin, which is how important sort of mental fitness and performance is when it comes to being a leader and making decisions and staying optimistic and resourceful. And so what that allows me to do is beginning with that, getting into their deeper why, and also unpacking a lot of the hidden barriers so many of us have in our psyches already, whether it's we're afraid of numbers and money, or we don't feel like we're good enough. These types of things, which might seem soft from the outset, they're actually the core blockers that prevent a lot of founders from seeing their business and themselves more objectively. And so the reason I try to get at that is because it also helps to build authenticity and like a genuine relationship where you actually care about them. Because you guys all know this, and anybody who's on the call who works with entrepreneurs knows this. The first time you meet an entrepreneur, they've got that founder facade up where everything's amazing or terrible, and they want to impress. They think they're supposed to be ready to pitch at all moments, and it's very hard to get genuine, good information. But if you're willing to kind of dig deeper with them, and I use a lot of like real anecdotes from actual big businesses they've heard of, because those stories are way messier than they're ever made out to be. That helps me then frame, okay, what we're going to do today is focus very, very narrowly on the things that are going to move this business forward so that you can get to your big vision later down the line. Too often, everybody tries to do too much at once early on and in the short term. But if you help them see that I get what you're trying to accomplish from both a professional, financial, and a self-actualization standpoint, and now I'm going to help you show how to do that and really space that out chronologically, step by step. But Rome wasn't built in a day, kind of thing. I found that to be really, really effective. Again, it feels like a little softer, and it's definitely an area that not a lot of people come at it from, but that has been super effective for me.
I really like that approach. Again, it resonated with me a lot, with both me personally and with a lot of the clients that we see here at ACE. A lot of these small businesses feel like they're on an island. And like you said, the facade goes up. And then when you build that trusted advisor role, it really, really resonates. And you start to get to the deeper why and really be able to make some serious impacts. Karen, do you want to try to take a stab at that?
Yes, absolutely. I resonate a lot with what Ian is sharing. Within our programming, we also have embedded a lot of goal setting, but in a way that chunks up the big vision or the big business goal into actionable steps. But furthermore, the accountability piece that we have built into the small group structure that we have. So we are, having large gatherings once a month, but really the magic is happening in the small group settings when the entrepreneur, the leader of the group, who we call a JETA, the Just Entrepreneur Agent, is bringing a small group of women together to share that vision. They have the opportunity to share what those actionable steps are and check in with each other. And I think for us, that has really brought those long-term goals into more short-term actionable steps that has resulted in bigger impact for the entrepreneur.
Thank you, TT. I'll give you a shot at that as well.
Yeah, I think all my colleagues I've shared resonates significantly. I believe as we as the ESO group are looking at ways that we can build tools, we really have to look at the clients to center their needs and to kind of build it in over a period of time and see, okay, what are the bite size that they can actually take on now, and then over time show them the incremental shift that is happening. I agree that the psyche is so key because many businesses tend to be reactive, and also the why. I love what Ian said about the why. I think if you can keep grounding them in the why, we really can unlock some of the barriers that they might have internally, about maybe learning or leaning into some of the resources, or challenging them to kind of step in a little bit deeper. And I think those whys could help us kind of help them say, maybe this is not the right decision because your why is not this. It seems like your why is for something smaller, and that's okay. And so why are you pursuing something that might drain you because it doesn't align with your why? So I think, naming those whys is I love that framing.
Absolutely. And again, you touched on something too, along the lines of building that trusted advisor, trusted relationship. I like those small wins, to use a sports metaphor of getting some singles and some doubles as you move forward and through that. So, Ian, I see your hand up. I'd love to hear more. Let's go.
Yeah, sorry, I just thought I'd add in one more point to build off what TT was saying and the small wins you just referred to. I can't emphasize that point enough because there's this, culture teaches us as founders and entrepreneurs that one day you're starting and the next day you're IPOing, or that you're expanding, and it doesn't, and there's a soundtrack and a montage, all this stuff. And it obviously doesn't happen that way. And so celebrating the wins. And I was just doing this with my wife the other day when we were landing our first clients for this new business she just launched. And, we got one client booked, you get that email come through, and it's like, wow, that's amazing. Like that is what success in this business looks like. It doesn't look like somebody coming out of nowhere being like, hey, Ray, you are now successful, right? It's like, you gotta enjoy the process and the journey and the challenges. And again, for a first-time founder, it's very difficult to think that way because between Shark Tank and movies and stuff, we're all associating success with rapid growth and being massive and getting some famous person to like your product. But in reality, the vast majority of us are out here toiling each and every day. And if you can't enjoy the process, it's never going to lead to what you want it to lead to, whether it's financial or personal or both. So I just wanted to double click on that one point that you guys had mentioned.
Absolutely. Well said. Well said. So Karen, I'm going to throw the ball to you again and ask you what's something that you've learned from business owners themselves that have really helped reshape your work.
Yes, thank you. When I saw this question, I got really excited about what we're doing here at Just. And actually, my colleague, I'll give her a shout out, Ashley Phillips, is on the call, and she has a huge part to do in this. But, really, our entrepreneurs all have different backgrounds and they're all in different places of their entrepreneurship journey. Some that this is just a dream and they're just started, to some that are established and have their brick and mortar. But one thing that we do here at Just, anytime that we start working, is we talk about the dream and what are they hoping to accomplish. And a lot of the times, I think for my assumption when I started here at Just would be that their dream would be business related, to have a brick and mortar, to scale. And a lot of the dreams that we have been seeing are related to home ownership or generational wealth, building assets. So at Just here recently, we developed a new, what we call product, or a new benefit for our entrepreneurs, which is a home buying investment. So we are supporting them not only in the entrepreneurship space, but also in that generational wealth building and asset building. And just this past December, we were able to support one of our entrepreneurs in buying her home. And we're on the journey right now to support quite a few others. And we're really excited about learning and digging deeper into what their needs are, and having the opportunity and the capacity to make moves that make these these dreams come into reality. So that is something that I'm really proud of, and that I know Ashley here on the call is probably really, really proud of as well. And just thinking about just my own personal experience and being an immigrant to this country, and seeing my parents, work so hard to make these steps to own a home and to build um, an asset that could be left for us, is something that we're now getting to do, and it's just full circle for me. So thank you for asking that. I love that question.
Hugely important. I love the fact that you're marrying, and I've seen it from funders of late, where they're asking outside of the business growth and, growing wealth and all those kinds of things. I love to hear what the impacts are of that small business into the personal realm, like home ownership, legacy building, succession plan, and things like that. So I
Yeah,
appreciate that answer. That's amazing. That's really
thank
good.
you.
Titi,
Yes.
I'd like to hear from California, same question. I know I'm spitballing a little bit here, but same question from your lens at Working Solutions.
Yeah, I think one that has resonated was around the challenges that female founders face, specifically around the balance of when people decide to start having children and start a family, and that having to make hard decisions around just workforce, and decisions around what happens in care and support that they need to keep running their business. And out of it, we over the years, we've been thinking about something that we can do that can really help childcare industry grow, and our role in being part of that, and to help stimulate stability there, because that's, across different counties that we serve, we found that there is a gap of need, which first, there's not enough capacity support, there's not enough childcare centers that is available, and many families struggle to find affordable childcare, that they can use, and sometimes pull back on some economic opportunities because of that. And so last year, and over this course of this year, we rolled out a program in collaboration with another major CDFI LIF, to provide childcare programming loans that still offers very similar terms, but in the underwriting, we're very much intentional in how we approach how we provide and make decisions on those, getting the capital out for the childcare industry. And so I think we're on a learning journey around it, but our hope is that we can see more childcare centers open. We can see more affordability rollout for first accessibility and affordability, so that cities and regions that tend to have those barriers, more parents can be able to have affordable. And so it's really closing the loop. Again, it's talking about a sector that came out of a need that we saw around our female founders, that we decided we want to lean in more into and be part of a solution and expand that solution across the state.
Meet the needs. That's fantastic. That's good. Very good. I'm going to pivot a little bit on this next question. This question's for you, Ian. I'm going to ask you, what role does data or storytelling play in shaping support models that actually stick?
Yeah, this is a question I could get on a soapbox about for a long time, I think. But I guess to put it simply, I think that in our space, ESOs and funders and investors, we need way more data and way less storytelling. And that's not to say storytelling isn't important. It certainly is. However, there's just so many programs out there where founders, all they do is rehearse a pitch. And what they don't need to do is rehearse a pitch again. They need to understand their business. Storytelling is really great for investors sometimes, for events, but it's really terrible for decision making. And founders need to be able to, they need to learn how to see patterns, benchmarks, cause and effect between decisions that they make. What actually works and not just what happened with one person that's a customer or one company that they idolize. And I think that, in the past, it's supporting entrepreneurs has always been this kind of like, oh, well, their talent will kind of take the reins and you let them flourish and try to do what you want to do. But in reality today, it's so competitive, but we're also armed with so much more data. And I don't just mean data in terms of what makes them successful. I mean, data that they have. So we should be getting a lot more data from them, from runway to pricing, conversion rates, emotional state, all these things. Like, we can get that data from them to help get a better pulse check on what we're providing. And then beyond that, a lot of entrepreneurs, they go into their spaces, they might know their core business, but they don't necessarily know the industry data. So for instance, we should be arming them with, okay, in your space, what does customer acquisition cost typically look like? What do open rates and click rates typically look like? What is funnel conversion rates if you're doing B2B sales? These types of things. I remember as a founder, our newsletter, just to give you a quick anecdote, our newsletter was getting like a 35, 40% open rate and a 15% click rate. But I didn't know any of the benchmarks. So I thought we were doing terribly. And in reality, in our space, the click rates were like 2 to 3%. And so that right there could have saved me so much time and angst, and I could have leaned into that strength. But a lot of times founders don't know what they don't know. So they don't know what questions to ask. And we don't want to be too prescriptive. And so we don't really dig into their specifics. And I think we need to be a lot more prescriptive and use data and just learning as the driver of that, because that's what founders I work with tell me all the time. They want practical, tactical, strategic, and they really want someone to help show them the way. It doesn't have to be, they'll figure it out on their own anymore. Too many people have too much at stake to kind of continue with that approach, in my estimation.
Yeah, well said. I'm a big believer in that data component as well. Matter of fact, our advisory team, one of the things that we did a similar tool so that you're actually comparing apples to apples. If somebody's making widgets over here and somebody else is doing technology, we leverage in the past IBIS, but currently RMA to get industry specific data points, to your point, Ian, where we can actually say, okay, you have a convenience store. The convenience store in South Georgia, this is what their price margins and net margins look like. So you can actually make realistic comparisons as opposed to a broad brushed approach of, we're just kind of coaching and here's kind of what it looks like, and increase revenue and drop expenses, things like that. You can actually get a little more data to support that. I have a next question. Thank you for that, Ian. This is for TT, and really, how can ecosystem leaders better coordinate to reduce the burden on entrepreneurs? I love this question, so I may pass it along to all of us, but I'll start with you, TT, at least.
Yeah, I think the key is first to center the entrepreneurs in the process. I think a lot of times we center our organization in what serves us well. And unintentionally, we've had like different barriers that we've put in place, either communication barriers or sharing of data barriers. And I think the first question is, why do they exist? Why can't we remove them? I think it's challenging those barriers first to see, okay, why can't we share certain data together? What's the liability? And is this really a true liability? Is there a way to get around that? I think if we can start with ourselves internally to start asking those questions, we can then start coordinating better. For us, one of the steps we were taking is first kind of identifying how can we connect our clients directly to resources without feeling like, oh, we are oversharing their needs. And so we added a question at the front end of the lead generation to say, are you interested in getting connected to other TA support providers? And if the answer is yes, then they go into a list that we can share with the SBDC advice, because they've already given us consent in that space to be to get connected to a resource that could help them. And by doing that, it could improve their chances of getting the loan and getting better prepared. Not everybody knows that there's additional resources available. And we know that internally at the front end, we have limited capacity to be able to meet every need that come our way. But at the front end, if we can identify, get the consent, then that opens the door faster. Another thing we're also doing is building another consent at the back end of, hey, who else is in your village? Like, we know businesses have a team of supporters and connection. They have CPAs, they have existing advisors, they have, people that are their, attorneys or different people that they work with. And sometimes those people have carried them this far. And because of either our roadmap or the things that we have, we sometimes cut that off and say, oh, you alone that must come in this place. Why? And so we're also adding another consent that says, let us know who else you want to be looped into communications that we can be completely be able to share with, because if you've given us consent, then anytime we have information they can share, and they can also share information back with us. The core decisions still rest on the client, but it allows information sharing at a faster speed. It'll also remove some of those barriers of like wait, and then like you've got to take so many detours before you come back to a road that you can go straight into. I think for me, I'm a business owner myself, and I know that there's limited time. Besides, it's limited time that businesses have to be able to go back and talk to somebody and then send information. If we can remove that extra barrier, they might be able to move faster, especially for us, because we also connect them with capital as well.
Wonderful. I'm going to call an audible here. Is there anyone that's on the call participating in this? Because this was, well, yes, we have an amazing esteemed group of panelists here. Would love to hear from some of the folks that are out there, if they have any feedback. I don't see anything in the Q&A box, but I wanted to make this more of a dialogue and less of us presenting to you guys. So if there is anything, and I'm checking. If I'm looking crazy, I'm not. It's only because I'm looking for the chat box and all of that kind of stuff. And I'm happy to go on. I've got some additional questions, but we have a little bit of time. So if there's anybody, especially on this question regarding ecosystem leaders that are probably on this call, what ways are you finding to leverage the ecosystem to help to better serve your clients? And so I'm going to ask my panelists to help me see things too, if you see a chat pop up or anything. And if not, we'll keep forging on, but. Okay, well, we're just going to keep going here. So my next question is really is for, well, actually, I wanted to give Karen an opportunity because it sounds like she's doing some holistic work there in Texas as well. If you want to take a shot at that last question.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we also, I think, align a lot with what TT shared, and just the value of partnerships, and really looking around us and looking at the organizations that are doing similar or aligned work to what we're doing, and viewing them as co-collaborators, co-creators, rather than competitors, and really starting to build those trustworthy relationships that can take us into entering into partnerships that then our entrepreneurs can access a lot more resources. I think the beauty of the connecting with our own clients is that we have built-in trust. So anything and any resource that maybe is coming through us can have a long-lasting impact and better produce better outcomes for entrepreneurs if perhaps they're being connected through trustworthy sources. So I think that if we move into that cross collaboration space and start to create and decrease barriers for how the entrepreneurs are accessing resources from other partners, we can make a huge impact.
Outstanding. And that's encoded in our DNA here at ACE as well as yes, capital, obviously, coaching, obviously, but then that last of the three pillars that we leverage in terms of the three C's is connections. And that could be something as I think I shared with the panelists before we got on the call, our focus is on financial acumen. So if you come to me and say, I want to build a website or I need a marketing resource or whatever, well, I'm dating myself by using the word Rolodex, but I will bring out the Rolodex and say, here's 3 or 4 or 5 resources that we've vetted, but do your own due diligence. And again, same thing for work that other ecosystem partners are doing on a regular basis that could benefit and add value to the client. Ian, I see your hand.
Yeah, thank you. I figured I'd throw one last thought in here. I think that it's always great to see organizations partner and collaborate, and it certainly, I think it's something we all preach and we all wish we could see more of all the time. And I guess my challenge to organizations on the call who have sort of partnerships or referral relationships with each other, that's a great start. I would say to take it one step further and make your relationships just really effective for the entrepreneur is, and this is going to sound really simple, and several of you probably already do this, but making it very clear to folks that when you introduce a partner or a service provider, whatever it is, making it abundantly clear is like, and then here's what they can provide, here's what the costs are, here's what would make it appropriate for you and ready for you. Like, it's like in a networking event, if you give people questions to start talking to each other about instead of relying on them to ask the questions, you get a whole different dynamic. It's way more productive. Same thing here. I think sometimes we stop just short of what would actually be really valuable, which is to, because entrepreneurs, we see service providers and partners circling around us. We don't know who's trying to take something from us, who's going to charge us what for something, whether this is a waste of my time or whether it's actually going to be worth it. And so we're looking to our trusted organizations and guides and coaches for just that little extra of, okay, hey guys, if you need a website, here are the 3 types of websites you might be looking for. Here are the folks that might be best for that. And here's the range you should expect to pay. So much is just lost in ambiguity and forcing us to like, let me go check like 6 other sources first before I even trust what you're telling me. I just think those little things can make a world of difference when we're talking about collaborating between orgs and service providers.
It's a great way to relationship building to be that trusted advisor, Ian. So that's a really good point. Very good point. So to that, Ian, I think you're going to get the last question of the day. We'll see. We may have some more questions, but I'll give you this one here. What should funders or partners know about what it takes to provide resilient, responsive support?
Yeah, I mean, that's a massive question, but I guess my core take would be we don't need more mentors. We need more teachers and real actual training. And I started my career as a teacher, just FYI. So, and I don't literally mean like K-12 teachers in this case. I just mean people who can teach the things about business. Because to be frank, a lot of programs out there, and these are programs, not like, CDFIs and the ones who actually run programs, a lot of the quality is pretty low. A lot of accelerators and ESOs, their programs are unstructured, they're not aligned, they're outdated, they're too focused on optics, and they don't build the skills that somebody needs to be a really effective business owner long term. They ultimately, what they do is they build dependency or vanity. Like I can tell you, so in Atlanta, we've got a sub series of like pitch competitions and little like, things. And you see the same startup bounce from one to the next one, and then they go to the support. And it's like they know what they're doing, we know what they're doing. And honestly, sometimes it's borderline just like exploitation. A lot of times it's underrepresented founders who are being made to like, hey, we'll give you a tiny check if you go up and give us a speech or a pit, and I think what we're doing is we're confusing mentorship with actual skills transfer. Mentorship is great if it's a long-standing relationship that somebody can count on for over a long period of time. Right now, we say mentors when we mean like, hey, an advising session. But teaching and training requires structure, examples, reps, feedback. And I normally don't do this because I don't want to sound arrogant, but I was a teacher of the year and coach of the year, and every founder program I've ever run has been over 9.5 on the NPS. And that's not because I mentor better. It's because I teach the skills. We simulate the problems. With Gen AI, you can put people in simulations now. It's like, hey, you're in this business. Here's what the data says about your marketing. Where would you put your attention? What would that look like? Like helping them get used to analyzing business situations with the tools at our disposal. All that stuff makes everything a lot more practical and productive, and can also really set your program apart, frankly, because most other people are just kind of relying on, oh, here's like our stable of operators who've done it before. When in reality, they've built 1, 2, maybe 3 businesses that are totally different time, totally different background, like they have different relationship with money. It's like a whole thing. So anyways, I'll stop there just to save us all some time and breath. But
No, it's very, very, very powerful. I have a curiosity question more than anything, and I agree with everything you just said. Is in your organizations or in your ecosystem, how do you measure? And we're in the same ecosystem. Didn't know that until the call, but how do you measure impact specifically for your organization so that you can tell that story to funders and/or investors?
Yeah, that is the sometimes multi-million-dollar question for us as orgs, right? The truth is that, and I've had multiple organizations shut me down when I've tried to help them build impact reports and things of that nature. But this goes back to the data piece, right? Like we need to get more serious about showing economic success. And a lot of folks, they might give a pre and post survey. Most people don't even do that, but let's assume you do that and get sort of the satisfaction scores, the what do you want to improve stuff. But beyond that, making sure when they enter that program, you get where their revenue is at, where their runway is at, like all of those things. And then just make it a requirement that and maybe even we, integrate with their QuickBooks or whatever it is, but we've got to see the financial health of these businesses because that's why we're here, right? This is what it's ultimately about, is to help entrepreneurs build businesses that are prosperous and successful for them. I don't need it to be venture scalable. I don't need all that stuff. I just want it to be a good business that works, right? And so, yeah, I think, and honestly, it's usually the bigger name accelerators and ESOs. They don't do much at all on the data front and measuring impact. And I could share specifics offline, but I just think we owe it to ourselves and to the entrepreneurs to be much more rigorous. That's what they want. That's what anybody who comes into a program wants. They want rigor. They want support. They want you to push them so they can be their best, even if they don't say it every time. And I think we should take that opportunity and really run with it.
Thank you for that. That's extremely helpful. I was going to give TTU a chance to answer from your perspective, but I've got a question in the box, and I want to honor that. We've got about 12 minutes left. It's from Rajiba Harris, and says, I want to start a personal financial counselor business online, as I don't want to talk to people, just help them live better financially. Just help live better financially. How do I get that? How do I do that and get paid? So let me make sure I read that again. I apologize. I want to start a personal financial counseling business online only, as I don't want to talk to people, I'm assuming meaning face to face, just help them live better financially. How do I do that and get paid? It almost sounds like a educational podcast kind of a play. And Rajiba, if I'm pronouncing it incorrectly, feel free to come off mute. And if you want to clarify, that would be, if I'm asking the question correctly. I don't know if I can take you off mute if I have the power. Let me see if I can hit this button here and see if that does it. Nope, guess not. So I'll throw this to my panelists if you have any feedback for Rajiba.
I can jump in.
Okay.
My question back to Rajiva would be why and who else is doing this and what makes yours? What's going to make yours unique? Um, I think when you answer that, understanding your own value proposition, the why could come from a lived experience that you feel like there's a gap in the personal financial services space that you feel that you can meet. But you want to scope out who else is doing it so that when you kind of release how it would kind of help inform how you want to release it in what form. Perhaps maybe your audience is high-end female entrepreneurs, or maybe they are startup, immigrant community, whatever that audience is that you feel that is needed, that you want to speak to. I think it's been able to kind of really hone in on that niche group, and then and start listening to that audience to see how they perceive it, engage in spaces where they are, before you even get to the point of making money out of it. Engaging with them and identifying how if they're willing to pay for this, because there's a lot of tools that's already out there around personal financial. So being able to identify their willingness. So there's some research, some market research that you would need to do, and go into spaces where some of some of your audiences might be participating in, if they're cohort groups or places where they are in, so you can listen, pose questions, so you can get a sense of their willingness to engage in spaces like this, and then you can start building based on the feedback you're getting, building what would really resonate with them.
Thank you, TT. And Rajiv, I hope that was helpful. Oh, I just saw your thank you, so it was good. I have a question from Lisa. We've had a few clients close their storefronts recently, and we wish that they would have reached out to us months ago for support. Are your clients coming to you for support when they're struggling? What other ways are you helping your clients through this current difficult economic climate? And that's for everybody. I will jump in then. I saw you, Karen, but I'll just jump in real quick and state that half my team is an in-house team that serves our 800 plus clients, and we are constantly trying to engage. We probably successfully engage about 76 to 80% of our clients at any given cadence during the course of a year. But now we are being super mindful with these current challenges that we're having. We started out at the beginning of the year in late January surveying everybody and just asking them, what does the near term look like as it pertains to recessionary headwinds, as it pertains to existing inflation, the potential ramifications of tariffs, and it really got a robust response back from all of our business owners. But we're constantly trying to reach out to them, and to your point, Lisa, get ahead of it. And so we've actually labeled it on our business advisory team as, instead of being reactive on our feedback, we get a phone call, it's too late, how do we fix the problem? And really being intentional about being predictive and trying to find ways that will raise a red flag. If a client comes to me and says, it's been a tough month, I need to get a modification on my loan, that you then go on the predictive list of, you're now not a red flag, they could still be paying their account as agreed and all of that, but it's something that the alarm bells go off, and then we're getting in front of them as a financial advisory group and saying, or a business advisory group, and saying, hey, how's it going? What can we do to help? What do your needs and resources? And if we don't have those subject matter experts in house at ACE, then we're going to do our level best to go out and find resources for them. Again, to that question about leveraging ecosystem partners in the state of Georgia specifically for us. So I'll throw it out to the rest of the team here as well.
Mhm. Ray, I think you mentioned one of the things that I was going to say is moving from reactive to proactive approaches has been really, essential to the current situation right now. I think one of the things that we've really emphasized with our team is the importance of continuous check-ins, and that consistency in our clients hearing from us rather than us waiting to hear from them. Because I think of the stressful nature that they're in, asking for help sometimes can become a little bit harder as they're trying to stay afloat and trying to be innovative and trying to just, look at what's in front of them. So it's really our job to reach out to them and say like, hey, just a reminder, we're here. Some may take it, some may not. But I think it is that trust building, proactive approaches that are really going to make the difference.
Yeah, I would also jump in and say that we're looking at the economic trends and some sectors that are having some high impact and doing some reaching out based on those groups, like for example, transportation, coffee industry, and because of like the import export impact, and some other industries that we find that could have some challenges ahead, and then structuring some like peer-to-peer network that they can maybe do some engagement. And we've kind of created some roadmap guidelines of some things that we recommend, again, around community. What is your overhead? What can you co-share with somebody else? What can you readjust? So kind of some hard conversations around just some specific tactics that they can lean into.
Ian, any feedback from your world?
Yeah, it's always tough, right? Because you wish that every entrepreneur would reach out the moment they need help with anything, and that's just not how entrepreneurs. That's not how we think. We do this because we don't want anybody's help. We want to do it all ourselves, which is one way to get to failure. But so I love what has already been said. I think from a communication standpoint, using your mailing lists and your social media in a little bit more of a blunt and tactical way, putting the questions much more straightforward. It's like, how to know if your business is failing and having a few signs, and then using that as a book time right now, and we'll help you assess the situation. Like trying to break through any sort of typical communication cycles with some new, more to the point messaging sometimes can be effective. I would also say that as organizations, advocacy on behalf of our constituents is also really important. And I mean that with policymakers. Kind of I alluded to at the top of the call. I was leading a call with 40 workforce development organizations who were all losing funding due to rollbacks and across the tech space and otherwise. And most of them didn't know how the ecosystem works from a policy perspective. Where's funding coming from? Is it federal? Is it state? Is it local? How does that mix? How does that affect philanthropic funding? And then once we started getting different voices in the room from those different areas, you started getting much more productive conversations. A lot of times we create a space where it's just entrepreneurs, which can be valuable sometimes, but other times they need to hear from leaders in the adjacent spaces that are impacting their business or their access to capital or customers. And those are the types of things they'll turn out for too. If it's just another kind of round table, like, hey, we're all struggling, that you're going to see diminishing returns on those types of things, because it's not, again, founders are like in constant urgency mode all the time when they're starting out or when they're trying to go through crisis. So, but I think it's incumbent upon us to also advocate on their behalf to policymakers when we can, in a way that is okay with your organization, to just say like, hey, these folks are struggling. They're job creators. Here's what they're struggling with, and make sure that we start to build those loops. Because a lot of times we just like to focus on the business part because that's fun, it's interesting, stimulating. But policy's still getting made out there, and it's either going to be made with you or without you. If you're not at the table, you're on the menu. So I'll leave it there.
I like that. And I'll close it with that. I do want to read a comment, and I'll pitch it back to Olivia because we're up against it. But this is from Dr. White, Dr. Latanya White. Said, no questions from me, but this was so great. As a recovering professor, LOL, technical assistance provider, and entrepreneurship researcher, I'm super excited to see Prosperity Now contributing to this space. And so thank you, Titi. Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Ian, for what's been, for me, very helpful, and it resonated with me as well this afternoon. So I consider this as time well spent. And Olivia, I'm going to pitch it back over to you.
Yeah, and thank you to all of our panelists. It was kind of good to sit back and take in all of the great content as I pretended to be an audience member this time around. This was a great conversation. As you can see, we didn't have a lot of questions from the audience, so I like to think that there was no stone left unturned. You guys definitely had a very thorough conversation with a lot of strategies, tactics, and even level setting in terms of our perspective. And so I'm very appreciative for this dream team today on today's webinar. I hope that we continue to collaborate with you all and also bring your voices, your resources, and your support to our greater entrepreneurship network. So huge thanks. I'm going to say thank you a million other times and probably after this webinar as well. But for the people that are here on the call, we want you to, of course, visit our website to stay up to date. Please complete the survey so that we can know if we hit the nail on the head or if you like any other topics that you'd want us to discuss. We want you to also sign up for our network so you can stay in the know on things that you care about, initiatives that are aligned with your work as well. And then also, while Ray was the moderator this time around, he'll be our featured presenter next month, where we'll talk about bridging capital and coaching, and more specifically, strengthening that TA lending pipeline. So we're going to continue to keep the conversation going, continue to bring strategies so that we can continue to not only deepen your engagement and your impact in the work, but just to ensure that we all stay connected. We talk a lot about ecosystems building on these calls, but making sure that we first and foremost build those communities so that we can not only scale our businesses, but scale our impact and make lasting change for generations to come. So again, thank you all for joining us for today. It's been a great time, a great hour with you all, and hope to chat with you all soon.
That's good. Thank you all.
Thank
Have a
you.
great one.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.